Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying your day. I am so excited to finally begin today with the first episode of the Monday with Margaret series. For those who have watched my videos before, welcome back. I'm sure that you have heard me mention this series many times in some of my previous videos. For those watching for the first time, I'm so glad that you are able to join us. My name is Jolene from Bookworm Adventure Girl, and I love to read diverse books, diverse authors, and diverse genres, which I will still be doing every Friday. And I also love Canadian literature. If this is something that interests you, then please hit subscribe and stick around. Today, as we kick off the Mondays with Margaret series, we will be talking about Margaret Atwood's first collection of poetry called The Circle Game. I will tell you how the idea for this series came to be and why I would want to read most of Margaret Atwood's works throughout the year until next November. The schedule of what we are reading is in the description below, and a couple of months ago I shared the books until the end of January. And if you stick around until the end, I will be sharing what we will be reading in February. So hopefully we can keep ahead. I will try to continue to do that so that if you're looking for something specific and you want to read along with us, then you will see the schedule, you'll know what's coming up, and you'll know if you need time to find it or if you need to go to the library. And I will leave links below to all of that as well. Margaret Atwood started publishing her work in the early 60s, but I actually didn't learn about her until almost 30 years later in the early 90s. I was in my grade 10 English class and we were doing a poetry unit, and the teacher randomly gave students a poem. Different students got different poems. And we were supposed to read the poem and then meet with the teacher afterwards to tell her what we thought the poem was about. I ended up with a poem called "This is a Photograph of Me" by a woman named Margaret Atwood. I had never heard of her, but I connected to the poem right away. When I was called up to the teacher's desk, I sort of remember what I said. I know I said something about the poem being about not really knowing people, and that you could be looking, right at them and not even know they are there, that we need to look beneath the surface of what we see to really know who someone is. I remember I did well on the assignment, and I started to learn more about who this Margaret Atwood person was. So I found out that she was a poet and a writer, and I loved the poem so much that I wrote it down and I kept it with some of my things. And over the years, whenever I came across it, I would read it again, and it always meant something new to me. So that same year, I read The Handmaid's Tale, which was published about 5 to 6 years before. Then I read The Edible Woman and Surfacing. In the mid-90s, I had the opportunity to hear Margaret Atwood speak a couple of times, and I was always very impressed by her, and she always gave really good up-to-date suggestions on books to read, books that she had read and enjoyed. And of course, she's considered to be one of the most respected Canadian authors, and now that she has been writing for several decades, she also carries a wealth of knowledge of how publishing has changed and the climate for writers, especially Canadian writers, and how that has changed as well. So the picture that I use for the Mondays with Margaret series is when I finally met Margaret Atwood in New York City at a Book Riot Live book festival in 2015. And in this picture, she is signing my copy of The Handmaid's Tale. Somehow after grade 10, I never continued to read Atwood's books. So this summer, when I was putting together my channel, I was trying to think of what I could do on my channel, and I was thinking about who could I read that would have enough literature for me to read throughout the whole year, that would have enough for me to talk about, and that I would actually learn something. And Margaret Atwood was at the top of the list, so here we are. Margaret Atwood's most recent publication comes out tomorrow, November the 10th. It is her poetry collection. I think it's the first one in almost 10 years. It's called Dearly, but we will be waiting to read that together near the end of next year. So I think it's appropriate that we start with Margaret Atwood's first collection of poetry that was published in 1964, One of the most well-known poems in the collection is the first poem, and it's called This is a Photograph of Me. So, Mrs. Vecchio Sills, if you are watching, I'm going to be talking about this poem again. I would like to read it to you, and this is one that I think we could read together. This is a photograph of me. It was taken some time ago. At first it seems to be a smeared print, blurred lines and gray flecks blended with the paper. Then as you scan it, you see in the left-hand corner a thing that is like a branch, part of a tree, balsam or spruce. Emerging and to the right, halfway up what ought to be a gentle slope, a small frame house. In the background there is a lake, and beyond that some low hills. The photograph was taken the day after I drowned. I am in the lake, in the center of the picture, just under the surface. It is difficult to say where precisely, or to say how large or small I am. The effect of water on light is a distortion. But if you look long enough, eventually you will be able to see me. This poem still gets to me. I love poems about nature, and Margaret Atwood often writes about nature and the environment in her poems. And the surrounding area that's described, and what's in the foreground and what are on the sides, it kind of frames what we are to focus on, which is the lake. And there's obviously been some kind of tragedy, but of course we don't know what that is. And I mean, it was taken the day she drowned, but we don't know anything about that. And it was also taken some time ago. So I still feel that there's profound meaning in the lines, just under the surface. And that last line, if you look long enough, eventually you will be able to see me. I think that there are many ways of interpreting this poem, and I love that. And at least for me, it has always continued to have different meaning in my life. And that meaning, it has changed. And I think that you could read it in light of the world today, and it means something very different again. And I think that's probably a sign of great writing. So like This is a Photograph of Me, there is a poem called Camera, where a photograph is described and how an image is going to be captured. So this seems to be a reoccurring theme in at least this collection. The poem begins with describing, all the elements that are needed to capture this perfect moment. And then in the end, the picture is no longer perfection. The perfection is actually destroyed. Continuing with the nature theme is After the Flood, We. And it also has like a dystopia or apocalyptic type of writing. The poem Spring in the Igloo is also about nature, and it looks more at like environmental issues that I know Atwood has always talked about. So I really like that. The poem Evening Transition Before Departure is another poem that I think has or can have profound meaning depending on how you interpret it. I love how it ends. For me, there's a bit of a twist. I like that it's about moving on a train, traveling different places, but I often wonder, what is it that's moving? Is it a person? Is it time? Is it the sun? The poem talks about what's in the suitcase, and I wonder if, at the end it's like pictures that this person is taking or memories that she's keeping. There's a few different things that it could mean. And I've tried to read it in different ways, thinking, okay, it's daytime or it's the sunlight, and I would be interested in hearing what you guys have to think about that. An Attempted Solution for Chess Problems is a great poem, and it has the themes of siblings and play, and I love how the chess pieces are described and how the costumes are in waiting, and also in playing cards it continues that theme of play. And I love how the playing cards are described. There's a queen, or rather two of them, joined at the waist, or near. You can't tell where exactly, under the thick brocaded costume. Or is it one woman with two heads? Each has hair drawn back, made of lines, and a half smile that is part of a set pattern. I love that description because it kind of zeroes in on what is happening, and you zero in on that card and I can see the card in front of me. And like so many of her other poems in this collection, as I said, nature is described. So there's what's going on outside is mentioned. Outside the weather is like. So an author that I recently listened to, and I think it was Susanna Themavongsa, who said that talking about the weather is very Canadian, and she said that she always includes it intentionally in her work. So I think there's probably something to be said for that, and maybe that is what Margaret Atwood is doing as well. Man with a Hook was a fun poem that I thought was very clever, and it's another one, it's the other one I'm going to read to you, and I think there are so many lines in it that I read and then would have to reread because the imagery was so great. So it's Man with a Hook. This man I know, about a year ago when he was young, blew his arm off in the cellar making bombs to explode the robins on the lawns. Now he has a hook instead of a hand. It is an ingenious gadget and comes with various attachments. Knife for meals, pink plastic hand for everyday handshakes, black stuffed leather glove for social functions. I attempt pity. But look, he says, glittering like a fanatic, my hook is an improvement. And to demonstrate, lowers his arm, the steel question mark turns and opens, and from his burning cigarette unscrews and holds the delicate ash. A thing precise, my clumsy, tender, skinned pink fingers couldn't do. So I love the imagery in that, and I think it's kind of witty. So there are many lines in many of the poems that, as I was reading them, and I would reread because the imagery was so great. And in the title poem, The Circle Game, is another example of these descriptions. So in part 4 of the poem, it says, and I am fixed, stuck down on the outspread map of this room, of your mind's continent, here and yet not here, like the wardrobe and the mirrors, the voices through the wall, your body ignored on the bed, transfixed by your eyes' cold blue thumbtacks. So I love that, your eyes' cold blue thumbtacks. Just makes me stop and go, that's great imagery. Other images that I've loved are from Pre-Amphibian, and it says, again, so I subside, nudged by the softening driftwood of your body, tangle on you like a water weed caught on a submerged tree limb. I love that, and it carries on. I think it's such a great writing. And the last one that I want to share is Against Still Life, and it says, these orange silences, sunlight and hidden smile, made me want to wrench you into staying. Now I'd crack your skull like a walnut, split it like a pumpkin to make you talk or get a look inside. This is great. The last 2 poems, The Explorers and the Settlers, are poems that are also very Canadian, as they speak to Canada's history on how settlers have treated the first people of the land called Turtle Island. And I think that this is a sad and tragic story, and we still have a long way to go, and these poems have probably taken on new meanings in the past 60 years since they've been written. And every time I hear Margaret speak, she talks about the Indigenous people of the land. She has always done so with great respect, and I'm hoping that as we continue reading Atwood's poetry and her other works, that this is a topic that she continues to come back to. I'm pretty sure that it will be, and also that she continues with the type of writing and her descriptions that she has. So this is one Monday down and 51 more to go. So I have the schedule of books for each Monday in the description below, as I've said, and I've added 4 more books to it since the video I did this summer. So that schedule, like I said, only went to January of 2021, and I want to share with you the next books in the schedule. So on February 1st, it's the nonfiction book Days of the Rebels, which I know does not look like a book that you would think Margaret Atwood has done, but it was published in 1977. Then we go back to poetry on February the 8th with Two-Headed Poems, which was published in 1978. Monday, February 15th is Atwood's novel Life Before Man, which was published in 1979. Then to finish the month off for the last Monday in February, we are going to read 3 of Atwood's children's books. Up in the Tree is the first one. It was published in 1978. Anna's Pet was published in 1980. And For the Birds was published in 1990. I'm looking forward to more Mondays with Margaret and reading with you. Please let me know in the comments below if you have read any of these poems, if you have any favorites. in this collection, what you liked about them, what you didn't like about them. Are there any themes in particular that you saw or that you want to explore in Atwood's other works as we continue to read? I look forward to your thoughts on all of that. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.